Every single person who has ever lived has faced this exact same question. I mean, think about it. Kings, beggars, brilliant scientists, saints, billions of humans across thousands of years, and not a single one of them could bring back a definitive, indisputable answer. Because there is one absolute truth that none of us can escape. One day, your heart will beat for the very last time.
Right, so, and then what? It is literally the ultimate mystery. Today, in this explainer, we're going to impartially explore what actually happens after death. We're going to look at this whole thing through the lenses of cutting-edge science, ancient world religions, and the incredibly fascinating accounts of thousands of people who have gone right up to the brink and come back to tell us about it.
Section 1. The final 30 seconds.
Humanity has been trying to quantify the exact moment of death for a very long time. Back in 1901, there was this physician named Dr. Duncan McDougall. He attempted a highly publicized, though, let's be honest, heavily flawed experiment. He actually placed dying tuberculosis patients on an industrial-sized scale. He claimed that at the exact moment of death, the patients lost exactly 21 grams, and he theorized that this was the literal physical weight of the human soul leaving the body. He even tried this on 15 dogs, found no weight loss, and decided, well, animals just must not have souls. Now, obviously, modern science tells us this weight loss was almost certainly just the sudden evaporation of moisture from breath and sweat, but it just goes to show how desperate we've been to measure the completely unmeasurable.
So let's pivot to real modern science, because in 2022, researchers made an absolutely astonishing breakthrough. A patient tragically suffered cardiac arrest while they were continuously hooked up to an EEG brain scanner. And for the first time ever, scientists captured the brainwave activity of a dying human brain. What they found was incredible. In his final 30 seconds of life, his brain produced this massive surge of gamma waves. Now, these are the exact same waves linked to vivid dreaming, deep meditation, and memory recall. So this actually provides direct biological evidence for something millions of people have reported: the phenomenon of your entire life flashing before your eyes. It's kind of like a highlight reel, played by your brain in its final moments.
Section 2. Near-death experiences.
It turns out coming back from the edge is shockingly common. Nearly 5% of the global population reports having a near-death experience, or NDE. That is a massive number of people. And what's incredibly fascinating is the sheer consistency of these accounts. People from completely different cultures, religions, and continents independently describe shockingly similar things. We're talking universal traits here. A feeling of floating right outside their own physical body, passing through a dark tunnel, moving toward a brilliant warm light at the end, and an overwhelming sense of deep, deep peace. Many even report meeting deceased loved ones, or some sort of familiar being of light.
And some of these cases completely defy easy explanation. Take the chilling 1991 case of Pam Reynolds. Pam had to undergo a highly risky brain surgery where her heart was completely stopped, the blood was literally drained from her brain, her eyes were taped shut, and clickers were placed in her ears to block out all outside sound. By every single medical definition, she was brain dead and clinically dead. Yet, when she was revived, she accurately described the surgery from a top-down perspective. She quoted exact conversations between the doctors and perfectly described the bone-cutting saw used on her skull, saying it looked like her electric toothbrush. I mean, how could she possibly know that?
Section 3. Ancient answers.
Now, for thousands of years, humanity didn't exactly have EEG machines or modern surgical theaters. Instead, we built entire civilizations and rich cultures around answering this singular mystery through faith. In Christianity and Islam, death is viewed as a doorway to judgment, leading either to eternal paradise or punishment. In Hinduism and Buddhism, death isn't really an end at all, it's a transition. The soul is reborn into a new body, shaped continuously by karma. The ancient Egyptians, they believed your heart was weighed against a single feather to determine your entry into paradise. And many indigenous traditions believe spirits never truly leave us, but they stay woven into nature, guiding the living. Do you notice the shared thread here? Almost every culture, entirely independently, arrived at the idea that consciousness continues in some form. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's fascinating how our cultural expectations heavily shape what we actually see during a near-death experience. For example, in Indian NDEs, like the documented cases of Chajubanyaka or Durga Jatav, they often feature the Hindu god of death, Yamaraj. Sometimes they even see his clerks checking ledgers and realizing they grabbed the wrong soul by mistake before sending them back down. Meanwhile, in Western Christian contexts, survivors frequently report seeing St. Peter at the pearly gates. The core feeling of the experience itself is universal, but the vivid details, those are deeply, deeply culturally dependent.
Section 4. the scientific counterpoint.
Now, it's absolutely crucial that we give skeptical science a fair seat at the table here. We have to look at how biology and neurology explain these profound phenomena. And this brings us to the dying brain hypothesis. Championed by neuroscientists and psychologists like Dr. Susan Blackmore, this theory argues that near-death experiences are, quite simply, the brain's final performance. As a dying brain is starved of oxygen, it triggers immense stress, massive chemical dumps, and heavy hallucinations. In this view, death isn't a magical passage to another dimension. It's just the lights turning off, permanently.
Let's actually look at how neuroscience systematically demystifies these magical elements side by side. That famous tunnel of light everyone talks about, scientists argue that's simply your visual cortex shutting down from the outside edges inward due to a lack of oxygen. What about that overwhelming feeling of deep peace? Well, that's just a massive final mercy release of endorphins by your body to combat the sheer physical stress of dying. And the life review, where everything flashes before your eyes, this is likely caused by seizures and random activation in the temporal lobe and limbic system, which just so happens to be exactly where all your memories are stored.
And scientists actually proved this. They used the US Navy to do it. They tested volunteers in a massive human centrifuge, spinning them at absolutely extreme speeds to simulate high gravitational forces. This induces something called G-lock, or G-force-induced loss of consciousness. Basically, the extreme gravity pulled all the blood and oxygen straight away from the volunteers' brains. And guess what happened when they woke up? They reported the exact same near-death experience symptoms: the tunnel of light, the floating out-of-body sensation, that overwhelming deep peace. Yet absolutely no one had actually died. It was purely an oxygen-deprived biological reaction.
Furthermore, science has rigorously tested the whole out-of-body claim. Dr. Sam Parnia conducted this massive project called the AWARE study. They observed over 2,000 cardiac arrest patients across multiple hospitals. His team cleverly placed hidden images on high shelves near the ceiling of emergency rooms. These were images you could only possibly see if your consciousness was genuinely floating above your body, looking down. Out of the thousands of patients and the dozens who reported floating, not a single one could accurately identify the hidden images. So the study ultimately failed to find any conclusive proof of out-of-body consciousness.
Section 5. The energy that remains.
But you know what? Science hasn't closed the book entirely on this. There's a fundamental physical law that bridges the gap between the deeply scientific and the highly spiritual. Let's think for a second about the law of conservation of energy. It states, very simply, that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. You, your consciousness, your memories, the electrical impulses firing across your neurons right at this exact second, you are fundamentally energy. So when the physical body fails, that exact energy doesn't simply vanish into nothingness. It can't. It physically disperses. It transforms into heat. It goes into the environment, becoming part of something vast and much larger. It is quite literally a scientific continuation of you. You're just no longer bound to the physical shape you hold right now. So, whether we are destined for a pearly gate, a cosmic rebirth, or simply a quiet return to the universe's energy pool, the ultimate truth is we just don't know for sure. But we can definitely learn from those who are at the very end of their journey. Bronnie Ware, a palliative care nurse who spent years comforting the dying, asked her patients about their biggest regrets. The number one answer was always this: I wish I had lived a life true to myself, not the life other people expected of me. People at the very end don't focus on what comes next. They focus on what they didn't do with the rare miracle of being alive right now.
Which brings us to the absolute most important takeaway from this entire explainer. The very fact that you are sitting here breathing, thinking, and processing this information is already the most astonishing, statistically impossible miracle in the cosmos. So maybe the real question isn't about what happens to us after our heart beats for the last time. Maybe the most vital question you can ask yourself today is this: what are you going to do with the time you have left?